You know, I learned something about myself this month. I'm actually a basic bitch. Hello, it is March, the beginning of March, which means it is time to look back on the month of February and see what I read. Now, this will be split into two parts, or three. Basically, I read two books that I don't have a lot to say on, and two that are a little bit more of a discussion. So we'll whip through the first two. Only four this month? Seems crazy, but yeah, only four. The first one is Modern Japan, a very short introduction. Yeah. I bought this before I was back on my proper book binge. And I sort of went through a phase where I wasn't picking up fantasy from bookshops because I had a go-to list that was making my way through slowly. So I was going for like educational stuff and history. And I was interested in Japan. I also have one about China, but this was the first one. It's a history book. And that's that. So book number two is part of a series that I have mentioned once or twice already, and that is Bakemonogatari Part 2. I have called this series trash, which I think is perfectly fair. It's basically like reading an anime with all of the terrible fan servicey humor that comes from some anime. The main story of these books is that a high school dude meets. It's basically kind of episodic, so each story he will meet a girl and there'll be something wrong with her, like something supernatural. And that's usually linked to some kind of psychosis is not the right word. Some kind of issue in her life or her mental health. So that was the aspects that sort of won it back for me when I was first reading it. But I found that this is the third book that I've read. The first one was I started with a prequel, and this book 2, and I think I'm getting bored of it. It's not that great. So if I do read the next one to reach the books that I bought, not by mistake, but I bought on a whim, it's going to be a long time away. I can't really recommend this. I think I gave it like 2.5 stars. It's fine. No, it's not fine. It was kind of crap. There we go. Next we have The Appeal by Janice Hallett. It still has a sticker on because it's not my copy, so it's not for me to do that. The original owner might want to do that. So this was handed out to me at a Christmas gathering, and I recognize it. This is if you're in the UK, this is in like every bookshop window, or I think now the sequel is, or her follow-up book is in every bookshop window. So it's one of those where like I recognized it. Didn't know much about it going in. The concept is that the book is told through emails and letters and text messages. And there's two, like, either law students or sort of like two girls who are in lower positions in a law firm looking through the evidence. So you will look at these emails, and then every so often you will get an exchange between them while they theorize what this is about, what is going on. And so because of that, it looks quite chunky, but it's a really quick read. so quick that I ended up reading it in 24 hours. I had plans that day, and instead, I sat in that chair and just kept on reading through the whole damn thing. this isn't even my genre, but it's such an easy read. I guess it's kind of like Dan Brown back in the day. Although I think it's better than Dan Brown. I wasn't a huge fan of Dan Brown, but you know, it's that appealing to a wide audience. It's what it's what your mum is gonna take on holiday. It's that kind of book. So that's something in its favour. It's so readable. However, one kind of criticism is that I think if it wasn't on the front cover that there is a murder, if that hadn't signposted that this was what was going to happen, I think I would have spent a lot longer wondering why we're bothering with this and why we're here. Because I was waiting for that to happen, and that doesn't come up until about 2/3 of the way in. Most of the book is the setup, and it's putting down these evidence of the things leading to the event. Maybe it kind of needed a bit more signposting in the book itself, because again, if you were handed the manuscript without the cover and without the blurb, I think you'd be like, why are we here? What's going on? What is this about? Let's go into a little bit more detail. The main characters involved in the murder, or who are suspects, are a lot of people who are involved in a acting group, like an Amdram society. It's very British. It's very quaint village British. If you're a Brit, if you live in the UK, chances are you've met these people. When I was still in school, I actually took part in a Amdram play away from school. This was not a school activity. So I was around all of these older people who took this very seriously. But there's also these connections that go outside of that. You've got the husband of like the husband is usually the director of the plays, but he takes a backseat role because there is a tragedy in the family, and he becomes very involved with fundraising medical bills. I won't say more than that. I'll just let you read it, because it is really readable. There are some unlikable characters in this. In fact, I don't think anyone's likable. They're either naive or annoying, or there's like that passive-aggressive person that you know. Like, it's all good writing. It's all very purposefully done that way. But if you have like a low threshold for annoying characters, you might end up putting this down. So that's the appeal. Oh, and I gave this 4 stars, by the way. I did debate giving it a little bit of a lower score, but I kind of figured if it's kept me going, if it's made me read it in 24 hours, then it's probably got something going for it. So say 4 stars for this one. And finally, we have the Emberblade. This was fantastic. It's the kind of writing where if you write yourself, you start seeing what he's done and picking up on the like character development and the pieces he's placed down to see how he's crafted this story, and it's very well crafted. So let's go into it. This has been described as a cross between The Lord of the Rings and Lies of Lamora. I don't really see the Lord of the Rings comparison, to be honest. Unless we're gonna say that you know, every book that has a trope from Lord of the Rings, which is like 90% of fantasy, even today, then it's like Lord of the Rings. I think for me, it didn't have that feeling of Lord of the Rings, so it never crossed my mind. I think if I picked out moments, I go, yeah, that bit's kind of like the Mines of Moria. Yeah, that character's kind of the Gandalf, and I'll come back to her. But it didn't feel like that. But the Lies of Lamora comparison, I think, is a lot truer. I don't think it's quite got the humour of Scott Lynch. But by the end, I kind of realised we're in a world where there's a little bit of magic, there's a little bit of supernatural stuff going on, but our main cast, barring from one, cannot do any of that stuff. They're very ornery people. They don't have any special skills, and a lot of what they do, what they're fighting against, is a political threat rather than a supernatural one. That's not 100% true. We have one character who is a druidess who has some knowledge of something worrying is going to happen. So I'm guessing that's what we're going to build to in later books. But the bulk of this story is a political enemy. It is not a magic Dark Lord. Something else it does like Lamora is it has a lot of morally grey characters. You have a main character who starts out fully integrated in the society, the new kind of overlords, new society, who are the Crodans. So they have come in and taken over this land, and his father has taught him to follow their rules. They are in charge. They're actually right. They know what they're doing. Their laws make sense. So if you listen to them and play the game, then you will just have a lovely normal life. And his arc is learning to find out that actually this society that he put a lot of his trust in is very ready to betray him. That's a very real thing to realize, and it's very powerful. But he has a realization sort of early on, but it really takes the whole book for him to grasp what he wants, and what he wants to do with himself. So I guess he's not really a morally grey character. He's the closest thing to a hero you have. But on the flip side, you have this character that appears maybe a quarter of the way in, a third of the way in, Garrick. And he is most definitely morally grey. He's really interesting in that he comes in and you think he is going to be the hero. But even then, he's very rough and ready. He's very mean to our main character. But you have this faith in him. I think it's helped by the druidess who thinks that he might be like a chosen one-esque type character. But time and again, we see that he's just like ready to do some horrible stuff to take down the Crodans. He is ready to just burn the world down, because unless his people are in charge, he is not happy. You also have some secondary characters. I'd say a good half of them sit in the pretty much a hero category, or like just kind of stuck in this situation. But the other half are definitely still, you've got more morally grey characters than just Garrick. And seeing that interplay with each other is absolutely fantastic. Seeing people, and it's great that you get to be in different people's heads, because you get to see these thoughts of potential betrayal or actual betrayal sometimes, and it really adds this complexity. And by the end of this book, you know all of these characters. You also have this druidess, as I mentioned. She's definitely the Gandalf character. But what I really like about her is that she is very uncertain in herself, in her own abilities, but also her gods. Like, she's a druidess. It is her job to believe and listen to the gods of this land. And there are moments where she doubts if they even exist. She's seen them before, but then she wonders if she's just been seeing things and imagining it. So she walks a really great fine line where she sort of saves the group quite a few times, but she's damaged by what happens, and yeah, she's very constantly doubtful. So having her on the team isn't like this, doesn't feel like a quick instant win. That having a character like Gandalf around feels like. And one of my favourite characters doesn't appear until about the last third, maybe quarter of the book. And that is Mara, and she is a co-conspirator with Garrick. She is fantastic. She is, and this is another one thing I love about this book, is it is happy to feature older women in very key roles. So Mara is like in her 40s or 50s. Her hair is graying and short, but she is someone who missed out on, marriage and kids because she wanted to focus on being, the smartest person in the room. But she's in a society that will not listen to her and will dismiss her for being a woman. But she is determined to be remembered as someone great. And she's become a very harsh person because of that background. And that's why I love her so much. So let's go into the plot a little bit. You have this main character who gets thrown into a prison, and a huge chunk of the book is their experiences in the prison, and then they're plotting to escape. Again, I think that might be another reason why some people had that Clamora feel. There's some planning and that kind of feeling of a heist, and we also get a bit of a heist at the end, I guess. And then you have these characters that come and rescue them at the point when they are escaping, and off we go. Now, I kind of noticed that it does something where I got annoyed at Wheel of Time for doing it, but it was okay here, and that is the fact that in Wheel of Time, I really missed the fact that they run away from, boy runs away from farm and goes on a quest. But I never know what that quest is. They just spend most of the book running for their lives. And that's it. I really wanted that key thread of, we are going here because we must do this. So for the first third of this book, that's kind of similar. They're on the run. Our main characters are just surviving. But it honestly felt more real because they're not given a moment to sit and think. Again, for the first third, we get the retrospection later. For a chunk of the book, they're not given time to think. They are on the run because they are being chased by something really horrible and bad. So that felt very real. But I think the reason why it felt okay on top of that was that they fall in with characters who do have a plan and do have goals of their own. And then it becomes a question of, do we want to join these guys? Is that something we want to do? And they sit and they think, and then they do decide for themselves what they want to do. So they definitely feel like they have more agency as characters than basically most of the cast of Either World. Please don't hate me, Wheel of Time fans. I've only read the first two. I'm sure that changes later on. But that's how I felt about this book. I really felt like it did it a lot better. And that is the Emberblade. I would give it a 5 stars because I think on every technical level it is a fantastic book. And Chris Wooding is also amazing at building tension. There are two big sections that start to have this, like, running out the clock element to them, and oh boy, you get so tense. So marks for doing that. They were fantastic. And that will do it for this wrap up. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you later. Bye! My cat is trying to get out of the room. I knew this would happen. Go on, you can do it. Go on.